Hey everyone, welcome back to Underreported Stories, where I cover the news that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News fail to report on or don't report on enough. And I came to you guys real humble. Last week I had to cancel Tuesday's show because I had a really bad stomach bug, and unless I was deciding to podcast from a garbage can, it wasn't happening. And today I come to you with the flu or strep, TBD. Either way, back-to-back immune system failures. I'm really not sure what's going on. This all started really late last night, so I'm waiting to get tested. But if my voice sounds weird, I might have strep, okay? So just bear with me. But I just have too many stories I want to talk about to wait on my stupid immune system to bounce back. So today's episode is brought to you by Zicam, an emergency. I'm kidding, but I'm really not. And a lot of those Halls cough drops. Thank you, Halls, for supporting today's show, aka making today's show happen. I'm kidding, they're not really sponsors. But for real, a story I have been dying to talk to you guys about is this research rabbit hole I went down about a week ago to talk about on last Tuesday's show that obviously never happened. And that is about the massive food corporations, we'll call it big food for sake of brevity, secretly creating foods that are circumventing the side effects of weight loss drugs like Ozempic, period. There's no plural to it. And anyway, remember that you guys can always use the chapters feature to scroll to other parts of the show and listen to stories that you came here for if you don't want to hear about the OZ and the Wegovies. Yeah? So I feel like everybody knows what this drug is by now. These are weight loss drugs, and basically what they do is they reduce hunger and cravings for people that believe they can't curtail that on their own. And that's why people are getting really skinny on these drugs. Like, they're just eating less, which, as I'm saying that, side note, when a drug gives you that side effect, it's considered wonderful and a great revolution to medical technology. But what I recommend you just eat less. It's promoting an unhealthy lifestyle. It's the same thing. You just don't have to take a drug for one of them. But anyway, I will believe that a decent amount of people who take these drugs, yes, some of them take the drugs in hope that it's some sort of miraculous cure, but a lot of people are very realistic about this and understand that these drugs are just one step to living a healthier lifestyle, or, genuinely a healthy lifestyle. And so a lot of the nutrition coaching that goes alongside GLP-1 medications, they will tell people to eat a high-protein diet so that when they're hungry, they're eating something that satiates that hunger and keeps them full longer. Again, advice that you could use outside of being on a GLP-1. But as that coaching has been going on alongside the consumption and the massive trend of GLP-1 medications, new analytics started to find that since the launch of this GLP-1 medication for weight loss, Americans are purchasing less food. And what they are purchasing isn't from big name companies like General Mills or Kraft Foods or any of those big food companies. And those companies are feeling that in their bottom line. Now, this could very well be a correlation because in 2023, when all of these weight loss drugs came to fruition, at the same time, we were seeing a massive resurgence of clean eating trends on social media. It became political to talk about eating healthy. So these profit dips could be a combination of women getting on GLP-1 medications coupled with people getting, I shouldn't even say women, all people getting on GLP-1 medications, as well as being really influenced by media, by politics to lose weight. Either way, whether it's Wegovy and Ozempic or the MAHA movement, the food companies are not happy with this. And the proper response to this, from seeing trends like this of Americans wanting to get more healthy, and I would believe the proper response would then to be create snacks that are high in protein, don't have excess sugar, and are limited in the seed oils that are used. Basically, I think a lot of companies, if they were smart and they wanted to get into this, like Masa chips is a really good example of this, or Siete chips or something like that, you can create a product that people will want and helps fit dietary needs, right? That is not what the snacking industry is doing right now, at least the big food snacking industry. Instead, what I want to do here is just expose them for what they are. They've hired a man named Justin Shimmick, okay? And Justin Chimmick comes across as a very sympathetic individual. They hired him, this guy has made millions and millions of dollars for these big food corporations. He's got a PhD, so obviously quite smart, intellectually speaking, maybe not so much in the wisdom world. But Justin Chimmick has been tapped to oversee the creation of products that bypass the side effects of GLP-1 medications. So basically, this is going to make all GLP-1 medications moot if you can bypass the side effects. And people are then still on these drugs, but still eating excessively because of the foods that are being chosen that they're probably going to market as very healthy and GLP-1 helpful. Like, they're marketing this alongside, like, take our food with GLP-1 medications, but in actuality, it circumvents the side effects of GLP-1s. And I read this story, which, by the way, was initially put out by the New York Times. This is not some woo-woo right-wing conspiracy theory. It is so purely evil. And by the way, like I said, Justin Chimmick, the perfect person for this, PR-wise. He's a larger man, and he puts out on his social medias that he struggled with weight too. So, oh my gosh, I'm a sympathetic older man with weight troubles. I want to make food for people that are going through weight loss. Okay? Well, he might be large, but he's also got large pockets because he's incredibly rich. And I guarantee you, he does not care about actually making people healthy. Because what Justin and his research team are doing is making foods more addictive. And food is addictive, by the way. That's the one thing I will give the body positivity movement is, like, food is addictive if you eat the wrong types of food. The junk food that is here, the ultra-processed food, like Doritos, that releases dopamine into our body, just like other great things that make us happy. And GLP-1 meds, they don't even just regulate those food noises. They also regulate the dopamine release that our body gets when we eat foods, therefore making foods less appealing. And scientists are specifically trying to create foods that circumvent that. They're trying to create foods that make people still crave the dopamine release to get people addicted to their foods again, while simultaneously marketing it as something that you can eat alongside a GLP-1 medication. No matter what your position on these weight loss drugs is, this is evil corporations preying on vulnerable people who are at least trying to get healthy and slimmer and make lifestyle changes. I don't think anyone out there is against food companies making money. I'm certainly not. I'm not against companies innovating or developing, not at all. But the innovation and doing it to target people instead of creating a product that people want to consume and innovating in that way, I find that to be so morally corrupt that I wanted to ensure that I used my first bit of my show to call that out and make a PSA to everybody. When you start seeing, eat this food among or alongside your GLP-1 medication, don't. It is just as bad as eating Doritos, if not worse, because it is going to circumvent your weight loss process and progress. It's disgusting. Truly, truly sickening. And like I said, I had to talk about that today. And it's been on my heart and mind for a while. But some other stories that I've got on the docket for today, because we've got to get into all of our underreported stories, is a Columbia student. He's an activist, is now in ICE custody after the Trump administration revoked his visa. Now, I am not a fan of this, and I'm going to give you a mouthful as to why I don't think that this is the best idea. But naturally, it's got a ton of nuance, so you'll want to stick around for that. Plus, we've got Biden's executive orders may be considered illegitimate according to a review of his signatures. Plus, we've got some illegal immigration updates, and the random racism segment is back at the end of the show. And if you don't have TikTok, you've probably never heard of this, so absolutely, please make sure you stick around for that. So without further ado, let's get into the 5 underreported stories that you need to know. I love uncovering the truth in politics, media, and even the truth about what's in our so-called cleaning products. Most store-bought cleaning products are loaded with toxic chemicals, hormone disruptors, and allergens. This is stuff that can impact your health, your kids' health, and even your pets. That's why I made the switch to Branch Basics. Their products are completely non-toxic and human-safe. As I'm recording this right now, I heard my laundry machine go off with Branch Basics on the inside. That's because there's no synthetic fragrances, no weird chemicals, so I 100% trust them. They use plant and mineral-based formulas that leave your home feeling truly clean without compromising your health. Honestly, right now, I also wish Branch Basics made some sort of cleaning product for your immune system, because I would be flinging that back too. If you're ready to toss the toxins, head over to branchbasics.com/Chrissy, or you can use the link in the description and use code Chrissy, CHRISSY, to get 15% off your first order. Again, use code Chrissy at checkout. A Columbia University student was detained by Immigration and Customs Enforcement and had his green card revoked by the Trump administration. Mahmoud Khalil is a graduate student who served as the lead negotiator for the pro-Palestinian encampments that took place on the college's campus last spring. Khalil's attorney said that the federal immigration officers detained him on Saturday night at his university apartment. He is Syrian-born, by the way, and was in America on temporary student visa status. He is now in ICE detention in Louisiana. The State Department put out a statement saying that, let me pull that statement up. This should serve as warning to foreign students on temporary status in America. Under this administration, if you support terror groups, we will deport you. And obviously, this guy was supporting Hamas, which is a designated U.S. terrorist group located in Gaza, but the U.S. has designated it as so. Now, the problem currently for the State Department is that a federal judge blocked temporarily the deportation of Khalil. The ACLU, as well as Khalil's lawyers, are likely going to argue that this is a violation of Khalil's free speech rights. And I kind of agree with them. I have been a firm believer, if you've been listening to the show for any amount of time, or even my stuff before I had a podcast, I have been a firm believer in setting a standard and then holding everybody to that standard. I don't like to make exceptions for people I like or people I don't like. We set a standard and then we do it. Setting the standard right now with this, what the State Department is setting, showcasing that the federal government is going to go after you for protest and free speech, even if it's awful, disgusting, horrible, bad free speech, I think it sets a horrible precedent. Because even though I really like this example, I am all by Khalil, I feel like I'm not sad, I'm very happy, I'm not going to miss you. I like the results of this. That doesn't mean it's right. It also doesn't mean that those same powers then cannot be weaponized against me in the future. They absolutely could. The federal government has before, under the Biden administration, weaponized the DOJ against parents and called them domestic terrorists. Is a lawfully abiding citizen who protests their school board going to get deported in the future for having domestic terrorist ties by protesting books in children's schools? Because that's the standard that this is setting. And I understand this is more extreme. This is supporting a terrorism group. But the word terrorism in our modern day Department of Justice system can absolutely be weaponized. We've seen it before. So I'm very trepidatious. Now, I say all that to also say this must be very frustrating for the Jewish community right now. Because in this situation, if this similar situation was going on, but the man arrested was an ISIS terrorist sympathizer, I don't think we would be talking about his free speech rights, his ability to protest. Collectively, there's no political divide in it, and so the country would just throw this man out. Even though Hamas believes almost the exact same things that ISIS does. Really not much of a difference. The difference is that the country doesn't feel as negative about Hamas as it does about ISIS, which is crazy. But I understand how Jewish people must feel. They must feel frustrated. They must feel like this is targeted anti-Semitism. And I'm not saying it is or it isn't. I'm just saying I totally and completely understand how frustrating that must be. But I still stand by my statement that the standards are the standards. And yes, that means if the standard is we get rid of everybody that supports terrorism, cool, we hold people to that standard. If the standard is free speech and ability to protest, even if you are a student visa holder and you support awful, awful organizations, then we have to uphold that, even for the ISIS terrorist. I feel like that's controversial, but the standards are the standards, right? I said that word 1,000 times. We must uphold the standards. And we must do that and allow people time to understand what the standards are and how to abide by them. That's the big criticism I was making. I did a hit on Newsmax at the end of last week talking about this, that if the rules and standards are changed today by the Biden administration, okay, or Trump administration, March 11th, it goes into effect that students on student visas can no longer show support, sympathize, or talk or protest in favor of terrorism organizations. Great, that's the standard. Set it. Moving forward. I find it deeply unfair that they're going back in time and going through all of these people's social media accounts when they didn't know that was a standard. They thought they were engaging in free speech. They thought they were engaging in protest, which is protected by the First Amendment. Again, these are the last people I want to be protecting or even advocating for, guys. I hate these pro-Palestinian protesters. I think they're abhorrent. I think they stand for some of the most vile, awful things in the world. But we still must have standards. So and by the way, I do make an exception for if, somebody is a genuine physical threat to our country, then get them out. Khalil does not follow into this. I think for the most part, you can make a couple of exceptions of what happened on Columbia University. Most of them were saying awful things and taking action in disturbing ways, but nothing that would violate someone or harm someone. There were a handful of incidents, and those people who physically took action, that is different than conversation, speech, protesting. Those are different. Now, what I think the Trump administration should do, and if I could advocate for any one change right now, it would be getting to the root cause of this, setting the standard of this. I think the Trump administration needs to say we no longer allow terrorist sympathizers into our country, not even on student visas. I actually want to go further than I'm saying right now. I just don't think you can retroactively put that in place. Students are here under those student visa plans. You can finish off your student visa and then you're not welcome back, right? Either get on board with our culture or you're out. I'm okay with that. It's the retroactively fitting it in without telling people the standard that I find to be unfair and I find to be an agent of chaos, which a lot of times I'm very cool with. But for some reason, I just think this is going to rattle up people to an extent that the Trump administration won't be able to win back over. And some of this is about electoral politics as well. So I just think that we should set a standard and we should hold everybody to that standard, but they also need to know and understand what the standard is. So I actually do think, legally speaking, that they are not going to be able to deport Khalil, but I think in the future, they should start getting ready to not just retroactively do this, but to ensure it doesn't happen in the future. Keep people with terrorist sympathizing views out of the country. It's so simple. I don't know, just focus on the future. But speaking of throwing things by the wayside, apparently some of Joe Biden's executive orders are going to be going by the wayside and they're going to be overturned, allegedly. This is a real legal theory being floated. This is not me coming up with a woo-woo conspiracy theory. So a review from the Heritage Foundation, which, yes, I know, conservative nonprofit, but still, the Heritage Foundation did a review of all of the official documents signed by Biden during his time in office. And a lot of them, if not almost all of them, use the same Autopen signature. So you probably have Autopen on PDF on your computer. It's a copy of an original signature that's pasted onto different documents. And of course, lots of presidents have that. That's not a new phenomenon. However, this has allegedly been put on executive orders. Again, a review of all Biden's signatures over his presidency shows he likely used Autopen signatures on his executive orders. So there are critics out there, namely the Attorney General of Missouri, claiming that executive orders that aren't actually signed by the president are illegitimate. So that would roll back pardons, allegedly. That could roll back abortion rights under emergency situations, a bunch of different executive orders that are now considered allegedly illegitimate. Now, again, the big flaw with this theory is that presidents dating back to at least Harry Truman have used some form of modern-day Autopen or copy and paste signatures. Obama allegedly used it. Trump in his first administration allegedly used it. There's a difference, though, between Obama and Trump and what they did and what Biden did, and that's because of Biden's lack of cognition. So we went through this video a couple of months ago, probably beginning of January, going through this video talking about how Biden admitted to the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, that he didn't remember signing an executive order. And in that meeting with Mike Johnson, not only did Biden not really know what he signed, he denied the word-for-word contents of the bill he signed because he either never read it or he never signed it. And I don't think a lot of people thought that that was like wild, crazy. Most people just assumed he never read it and he just sat there and signed the bill. Now we have a valid argument that not only did he never read it, but like his staff might have never even asked him to sign it because they already had his Autopen signature. And so I take issue with it with Biden because love or hate Obama, for instance, but his Autopen signature was likely used under his discretion and under his direction. Same with Trump. Same with Bush. All of them, which actually Bush didn't use this. But given what we know about Biden's mental cognition, I just think it might be worth an investigation. Not to investigate, and I actually don't care if any of Biden's executive orders get repealed because we could just, like, Trump could write an executive order to undo that, right? The point of an investigation would be to uncover whether Biden's staff used his signature without his knowledge or permission. And again, I don't want this to come across as political. Trump can come in, overdo or override everything that Biden put in place. It's not like we're in this like legally dicey area or anything that raises legal speculation about Autopen signatures. George W. Bush tasked the DOJ under his administration with assessing the constitutionality of Autopen, and the DOJ concluded that the use of Autopen is legal. Bush still decided not to because he was like concerned that it could be challenged legally. But a call for an investigation is not to even challenge the legality of Autopen. That's not what I'm seeking here. My purpose in calling for this is because we must ensure that no other presidents get taken advantage of if Biden was taken advantage of. That would be so unfair to any president to create a standard where staffers can utilize the president's signature if he were incapacitated. That freaks me out. I don't think anybody wants that, left, right, or center. And what really raised my eyebrows, too, was that there's only one signature that looks different from the rest of the signatures utilized throughout the entire Biden administration. And that was the one where Biden dropped out of the 2024 race. And so something about that just felt really eerie and necessary to bring to your attention. If you love this podcast, then you will absolutely love the Underreported Stories Substack. It's an email sent straight to your inbox Monday through Friday. You'll get an in-depth analysis of stories that are underreported, hot takes from me on the biggest news of the day, and Underreported Wrapped, where I'll let you in on personal updates, big news that flew under the radar, and you'll get a few pictures from America's Goodest Boy, my dog, Harper. Check out the link in the description to subscribe for free, and while you're down there, be sure to give this episode a thumbs up or a 5-star review. Next story, the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, said sanctuary city policies make American cities safer because, and I quote, undocumented immigrants come forward to report crimes. So Johnson made this statement at a Republican-led House Oversight Committee hearing where he was arguing that law enforcement shouldn't interact with people who aren't here legally. Okay, just putting the politics of this aside and focusing on the logic of what was said, because that's what I like, to focus on logic. If the police don't arrest unlawful migrants, those same unlawful migrants are then willingly going to go to the police who would arrest them for being here unlawfully and report crimes. That's the logic that Brandon Johnson went with, huh? The undocumented immigrants are either too afraid to talk to police officers because they're here undocumented and they don't want to get detained, or they're members of the community that have a great repertoire with police officers, but it cannot be both. And I was looking at Brandon Johnson's favorability ratings because I was like, how is this guy going to get elected? And now I am not surprised in the slightest that his favorability rating is at 14%. That is the lowest favorability rating in Chicago's history. There's a graph on the screen if you're in the viewing audience that shows you the popularity index of each Chicago mayor dating back to 1979. And Brandon Johnson takes the cake as the most unpopular mayor by a landslide. Lori Lightfoot was at 27%, and people hated her. To beat her by 13 points as the loserest mayor ever. That's just truly impressive. I mean, honestly, round of applause, Brandon Johnson. No one's a bigger loser than you. Not so, right? Speaking of illegal immigration, this next story is crazy. We recently uncovered that Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez's deputy comms director was an illegal immigrant who recently self-deported from the U.S. to Colombia. Diego de la Vega came to the U.S. at age 7 from Ecuador and overstayed his visitor's visa. So not an illegal entrant, but overstayed his visa. Obviously, this wasn't his choice given that he was 7, but he still overstayed past the age of 18 for, 12 years. It's really unclear. I'd love to give you guys a lot of clarity on this story, but it's very unclear how this actually worked with AOC's office because he technically can't work for Congress. He would have had to have worked with her campaign. He wouldn't be able to pass a security clearance. That's just what I'm assuming. Again, very difficult to get answers on this topic. This is what we know for a fact. That despite his illegal status, he had no problem working in liberal politics. From 2019 to 2021, he worked as a special assistant to a New York Assembly member named Robert J. Rodriguez. He also interned for U.S. Representative Carolyn Maloney. Now, certainly these offices knew he wasn't legally abiding in the country because there's so much to employment. You guys know, if you have a job, that job pays Social Security taxes. That job would need a Social Security number for you, or a green card number, or some sort of verification of your identity. These employers couldn't not know. AOC couldn't not know. You can't forge this stuff, especially when it comes to working in government. This is a very clear willingness by the left to hire illegal immigrants over Americans, only to push an agenda that represents people who aren't even here legally, which is not cool, to say the least. I actually find it really hilarious that AOC would advocate for higher wages for American workers while simultaneously putting an American worker out of a job by hiring an illegal worker. The irony's not lost on me there. It's also been floated online, a lot of speculation, that the DOJ is considering investigating AOC over this, but none of that is confirmed, at least at the time of recording this podcast. If anything changes, of course, I will keep you updated. All right, let's get into our fifth and final story, which is some more illegal immigration nonsense. Democrat Jasmine Crockett, who is blowing up on social media right now for her viral racist rants, went on MSNBC and proclaimed that illegally entering the country isn't illegal.
It is not a criminal violation to enter the country illegally. It's not a criminal. It's a crime. It's not a crime, which is why they're so frustrated, because they really want our local law enforcement to go out and round up people when they could be looking out for the murderers and the sexual abusers as well as the robbers. They want them to go and round people up on civil accusations. And so that's why I wanted to point out, don't give me this fake outrage about criminals roaming our streets when you guys stand 10 toes down for the biggest criminal that we have ever seen go into the White House.
Okay, I'm not going to feign ignorance of what she was trying to say, okay? Because I've seen a lot of very simplistic TikToks of oh, what a moron. Okay, what she said was nonsense, 100%. What she was trying to say is that not all undocumented immigrants are in criminal violation of the law. I've gone over this before in Reels and on here before. That statement is correct. Not all people who are undocumented are in criminal violation of our law. For instance, overstaying a visa isn't technically a crime. It's a civil infraction. Same for going over the speed limit, right? However, in our day-to-day vernacular, we call that a crime. Going over the speed limit, that's a crime. Oh, technically, it's a civil violation. But it's a crime. That's how we speak about crimes, a violation of the law. So what she was, I believe, trying to say is that not all undocumented people are illegally in the country. They're here illegally. They're not in criminal violation of the law. But of course, that's not what she said. If she had made that point, it would be valid and it wouldn't be going viral. But she said, which there's no way she actually believes this if she's a frickin' lawyer. She said, illegally entering the country isn't illegal. That is not true. If you illegally enter the country, it's a criminal violation of the law. To stay on an overdue visa, sure, technically not criminal. But entering illegally is illegal. It's right there in the word. Okay? It was illegal. Therefore, you did it illegally. To her point about Trump, though, allegedly being the biggest criminal of all time, while simultaneously trying to make the point that Republicans are stoking outrage for the point of stoking outrage, that's not landing for me. Okay, I'm just going to list off some names because I was thinking about this before. Okay? Al Capone, John Gotti, Ted Bundy, Osama bin Laden. Those are pretty good examples of people who are worse criminals in this country or in the world than Donald Trump. Okay, you can think that Donald Trump is the most awful, horrible, no good, very bad, mean, evil orange man. He is not even close in criminal comparison to the people I just lifted off. So please, trying to claim that stoking outrage is bad, whilst stoking outrage, it's a bad look. And the final point I will make about this segment, as we'll call it, is the picture behind her. If you're in the listening audience, I'm going to describe this for you. Jasmine Crockett is sitting in front of two framed pictures above what is clearly a couch. So these are framed pictures, I'm going to assume, that actually hang in her home. On the right-hand side is Representative Shirley Chisholm. She was the first Black woman elected to Congress. And in the picture, framed to the left of Jasmine Crockett, is the same position Shirley Chisholm is in, and it's just Jasmine Crockett, as if the two are comparable. I cannot take seriously someone who would put a frame of themselves and hang it next to a historical icon and openly compare themselves to that historical icon while spewing absolute nonsense on a national news network. That is so embarrassing. You're not going to catch me framing a picture of just myself anywhere in my home, nonetheless above my couch next to an icon. That would just be like me framing a picture with my hand on the hip next to I don't even know. I'm trying to think of really awesome female icons. I don't know, Sandra Day O'Connor? Sandra Day O'Connor and I are in the same pose and I just putting us back to back. What? Cancel me if that ever happens. Cancel me forever. Then again, this is the same woman who's likely faking her accent to come across as more relatable. That's what she's doing. She's clearly trying to speak in Ebonics to come across as relatable to a certain sect of Black people because she supposedly is very well educated. And there are previous interviews that are going viral across X right now where she's spoken very eloquently and articulately in countless interviews before. So she's clearly putting on a performance, and yeah, this is very transparent now. Speaking of performances, actually, it's a great segue. I know the Oscars have passed, but there's an interview that took place on the red carpet of the Oscars that's kind of getting delayed press and pushback, and it is the subject of today's Random Racism segment.
Random Racism!
In a push to add new media to all the different elements from, the White House press corps to the Oscars, podcasters had the opportunity to interview some of the celebrities attending the Oscars. And among those podcasters that got that opportunity is a duo named Hannah Berner and Paige DeSorbo. Now, they have a very popular pop culture podcast called Giggly Squad. I've listened to it before. I follow Paige on social media, and I've watched Hannah's comedy special. She's a comedian. Paige is more of like a fashion. I believe she's on a couple of Bravo shows or something along the lines of that. But they're very sequestered and tied to the pop culture world. And at the Oscars, Hannah and Paige, again, they're just very like, yep, 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 girly, girly girls. They were interviewing the rapper Megan Thee Stallion. And in the interview, Hannah gets very obnoxious, very excited. She's clearly a huge fan of Megan Thee Stallion. And she's just droning on and on and on and on about how much she loves Megan Thee Stallion. But women on TikTok are claiming that Hannah was engaging in microaggressions and offending Megan Thee Stallion because she suggested that rap music and Megan Thee Stallion's music makes her want to fight. This is the interview in question.
You give so much confidence to women everywhere. What do you do when you're not feeling confident?
I start my day with you.
We
and
do.
only
Wait.
you.
Oh my God! Wait, I'm gonna cry.
No, don't cry.
No,
We're
I'm
lying.
crying. No,
This is a laugh stream.
No, I know. No, your music has literally
Changed
made
our
me
life.
when I want to fight someone. I
Are you
listen to your
legit
music.
tearing up?
No, I'm tearing
You
up.
want to throw that fighting shit out the window and you want to get cute and be a bad bitch.
When people are talking shit, I go turn on Megan Thee
Body
Stallion.
yada yada. I look beautiful.
Yada, yada,
I look
yada.
so great.
Wait, no, you look so good. But I know, because I watched your documentary, you've been through so many dark things.
Yeah.
How do you get yourself up and inspire people?
I've never seen her this passionate.
I just look in the mirror and I be like, damn, you that girl.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, you are that girl. So go outside and act like you that girl.
When I saw this, I didn't think anything was problematic other than the interviewing skills, which were horrible. Talking over the person you're trying to interview the entire time in a small time, like allotment window of time, acting like a fool. It was really messy. And I should say, I said on the front side of the interview that like I follow them. I do follow them, but I'm not like a big fan of either of them. To me, their podcast is like the epitome of bad theology for women. They say a handful of things that are rooted in truth. And just because the clock is right twice a day doesn't mean that their advice is good, right? Women have really glommed on to the podcast, and some of it is really funny and silly. Some of it is just like downright stupidity, especially when it comes to topics of like dating and marriage. I don't think they're very good examples. So I say all of that to say, I'm going to defend Hannah, even though I'm not her biggest fan, because the online discourse is that she's a bad racist human for suggesting that Megan Thee Stallion's music is aggressive. I don't get that. It is. The words might not be saying something like, fight me. They might be talking about like big butts and body yada yada. But the general cadence of rap is very aggressive. That is the genre and has nothing to do with race. Eminem comes across as very aggressive because the tenor of rap is traditionally very aggressive. It's the beats, it's the cadence. The way rap is spoken, it's not a race issue. It's the way most logical people view and feel when they hear rap music. I don't think that's controversial. And if you don't have two brain cells to rub together to realize that most people feel that way, you're probably lying to yourself. And I think this really dives into like the whole culture war of DEI, where these crappy race essentialists will say, it's not about intention, it's about impact. I hate that. Hannah Berner is so clearly, you can tell by the way she's acting like an obnoxious freak on the red carpet. She's so clearly a massive fan of Megan Thee Stallion. Hannah Berner is not actually a fighter, okay? She's a comedian. She picked a word for the sake of comedic drama in the heat of the moment. People trying to make it anything other than Hannah Berner trying to compliment Megan Thee Stallion and say, your music pumps me up for a big moment. Anyone that is trying to deny that is so bought into DEI that they're intellectually dishonest. So anyway, feel free to go watch the videos. They're all over TikTok if you want to dive into the messiness of Hannah Berner getting fake canceled. But I feel like I have to do my job as the TikTok liaison for all of you guys because I know a lot of you do not like watching TikTok. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed that random racism segment. And if you're a real one and you made it to the end of today's show, will you drop the pen emoji as an homage to the pen that Biden likely never used? And before you go, if you're in the listening audience, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Our listening audience has doubled since more than doubled. I think it's like, I don't even know, almost 4x. It's crazy. Since our rebrand, everything has been doing really, really well in our listening audience. And I just want to say, again, thank you. And if I could ask one more thing from you, could you please, please, please leave a 5-star review for the show? Just take 1 minute to do that. It'll help boost the visibility of this show across platforms. All right, guys, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here on Thursday. Bye. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe and leave a comment about how beautiful, intelligent, and funny I am. And if you want more content, click right over here for more videos and clips of my show. I'll see you back here next time. Bye.